All right, let's just start here. It's Darren Rose Radio, and I'm a total fanboy today, wearing my Airborne Toxic Event shirt.
It's a nice looking shirt.
I think, Mikel, I've worn my Airborne T-shirt around you several times. It's kind of a running gag now. But I appreciate you coming in. You know, this is one
it's
of our...
weird when you throw your panties at me. It's like that's the part that I get uncomfortable.
Exactly. Well, I did start out as a fan, and I wanted to explain to you, this is one of my early episodes. Actually, this is probably my first episode. I'm going to launch here soon. And I wanted you to come in because you were one of, I was there early on in your career. So I was like, you know what? Yeah. This is my career change, kind of a second career for me. Mm-hmm. You're a second career guy. So I figure we have, yeah, dude, no, trust me. This is second career in music, I guess. And it's not really even a change because I'm still talking into a mic and still doing what I love, which is connecting artists with their fans and the fans with brilliant music. And it is Mikel Jollett from the Airborne Toxic Event hanging out with me today. You said you've been in the studio in your home writing 10 hours a day.
Yeah, that's all I do.
How does your brain not explode?
I love it. It's weird. I think I used to really love the rush of a live show most of all. And I loved like getting wasted and like an Airborne show is like 2 Sudafed and 3 shots of scotch. Cause I'm always sick on tour. I always got like a cold.
Well,
but
now
if
you're
you ever take like Sudafed, then like, it's like crack.
Right.
So I'd have to take Sudafed to clear my throat, and then it'd be like, well, let's get into show mode. And so then like 2 Sudafed and 3 shots of scotch, and I'm climbing stuff. I'm like jumping and screaming, and it's like crazy live energy, and I loved it. I still do, although what I'm really enjoying now is just writing. I've never been so focused on writing in my life, and it's for 6 months now. All I do, 10 hours a day, every single day. I have so much music I've written in the last 6 months. It's crazy. And I revamped all my stuff at home, and I sort of rebuilt a whole home system that's like crazy. I just have a massive number of tools that I didn't used to have at my disposal. I don't know, and I learned how to play everything and how to program everything, and so it's been really fun.
Do you share how much of that new stuff that you're writing, that you're working on? Do you share with whether it's Pete or the band or a friend that has a good ear, or what do you do?
Yeah, all of the above for sure. I play stuff for the band, and they, give insight and play parts, or have a perspective on it or something. Darren, for sure, just straight up makes songs better. Our drummer, he just makes things better. He's got such a great ear for rhythms. Anna and Steven both have interesting ideas about aesthetics that I would never have thought of in a million years that are just really super cool. And then, my friends that I play stuff for, I've been playing a lot of stuff for Fitz. Fitz is like one of my best friends, and we play each other music all the time. And it's like, and there's no bullshit with us. Like,
he's a second career guy too.
Yeah, sure. And we just, I'll play him stuff, and he just like, bam, 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 bam. He plays me stuff, I'm like, bam, bam, bam. And, but we're like brothers,
Yeah.
And there's definitely a strong sense of like rooting for each other. I'm really proud of him this year. He's had an incredible year. And to watch how much of it was sort of this act of will has been inspiring. So yeah, him and a few other people that I trust a lot.
Do you take it with, do you put it down on maybe your phone or on CD and then drive around town and listen to it?
No, not like that.
Is it just kind of like everything's kind of in studio?
It's like a guided dream.
Right.
It's like, and there's I get really out there, and a lot of the things that I put on for Airborne is, a certain aspect or a certain type of music. I think on this, I've generally written like massive stuff from bedroom pop to acoustic ballads to huge rock songs to straight up dance songs. And with Airborne, I tend to take a slice of this and put it out. On this next record, I think I'm going to be sort of widening the breadth of that to put out a wider sort of array of music. And I guess I feel like it doesn't matter as much to me what we sound like. I kind of want to destroy the sound of the band. That's kind of my goal in this next record, is just completely explode.
So does that
any
mean
expectations we or anyone else has about what we sound like?
I like that.
Kind of like
does
The
that
Cure.
mean
I've been thinking a lot about like Robert Smith and The Head of the Door and Japanese Whispers, how in The Walk, and how he just like they had made 17 Seconds in Pornography and were just like making all this like screaming guitar stuff, and he was just like, I just want to destroy all of it. I got drunk with Robert Smith once, and he talks about it.
Did you really?
He's like, I just don't know why I make music. You know, I just don't know why. It's my terrible British accent. But
That dude
I
plays
just
for like
wanted,
3.5 hours.
yeah, I love him.
It's crazy.
And he, you know, at one point he just was like, I just wanted to destroy what we were and just completely destroy everything. And I feel that way right now about Airborne. I just want to completely, like, if people aren't mad about this next record, I'll feel like I failed.
But what does that look like? Is that new instruments? Is that new, is that out of tune? What is that? I mean,
No, everything's in tune. Well,
are you going to bring in more a DJ maybe?
And a rapper?
Yeah. Go the Linkin Park route.
No. That's funny. I think core fans that are really familiar with sort of the breadth of things that we've done, won't be terribly surprised. They'll be like, oh yeah, it's just a little bit more on this
That's what I'm
front,
saying.
a little more on this front.
Yeah.
But I think to have a whole record that really goes there, I think it's going to be a much longer record than we've got. We always like 10 songs, that's an Airborne record. And each song is really meticulously crafted. And I'm trying to meticulously craft a really large amount of music right now for this next record.
And you have 3 under your belt. Do you have kind of like, I'm sure they're like your children, but do you have one that maybe you're a little bit closer to, or one that has different meaning for different reasons?
You always, like, as an artist, you always dislike the most recent one the most because you're just sick of playing it every night.
Right.
And then you go through phases with different things. I don't know though, because there's songs on this latest record that are some of my favorite of the whole catalog. Like Bride and Groom on this latest record might be my favorite song in the entire catalog. I've been in kind of an all-at-once mood lately.
Mm-hmm.
You know, me and Sardi fought so much when we made that record that I think afterwards I just washed my hands of it. But I'm kind of going back and being like, I kind of remember some production choices that were made. I was like, that was cool.
Right.
That was a good little choice. But typically I don't listen a ton to our music. Just because you play it so much, you hear it so much.
Oh yeah, and I don't mean listen to it, but more like just when you reflect back on it.
Yeah.
And you have kind of that, moment of, you have, obviously you're so close to it. It's just like any, me close to this project, my house here. It's like you're gonna have a different perspective than I am.
Yeah.
And I have different parts that I like.
Well, I'll tell you, there is a strong. I really want to bury the past. I always feel like the way to feel is if you have nothing. And the thing to do is to act as if you have nothing. And I often convince myself of that to the point where we'll play a show and I'm shocked people show up because I always just forget. I completely forget that people even give a shit one way or the other.
That's because you came into what you're doing now later in life. You weren't like a 21-year-old musician, 18-year-old musician. You totally. It might be it,
but it's also a massive amount of isolation writing. That's by design. Mm-hmm. Like I don't try to frequent places where people will be like, hey, like, and will know my role outside of, my own life that I lead right now, which is really, I feel like someone working on a novel or something. I'm just sort of isolated and by myself with these ideas, and I want to be. That's also by choice. Like I want to be isolated. I don't want to have to think about having fans. Not that I don't love fans, but because I don't want to invite people into the process. I sort of want to like be free to just go completely insane by myself.
Yeah.
And then make something and then kind of put it out. Because I think that's sort of how you can be creative.
Yeah.
And then the band has this way of kind of pounding things together and helping me to sort of really be clear on what, the sound of something is.
And you were just saying your place is not far from mine here.
Yeah.
Great view. You write in your office? Is that where you...
I just write in my house. I have this big house on a hill with like a 20-mile view, and I just sit there all day and write. And like the house itself, there's like a few different living rooms, but one of the living rooms is just a huge, like you walk in and there's just huge layout of things.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of keyboards and guitars and different instruments.
That's
and
awesome, yeah.
massive speakers and different microphones. Everything's plugged in, wired, ready to go. And I just sit there all day and I'll grab a guitar and then I'll play a thing and then I'll write a part on piano and then I'll, and I know a few other people that sort of work this way. And I didn't work this way at all until recently. I sort of streamlined everything tremendously about 6 months ago.
Well, I mean, minus the what do you mean by streamline? How did you?
I used to, need like to. It took me a very long time to get something to sound kind of close to how I wanted it to sound, and I essentially taught myself. I produced the first record, so I knew a thing or two about production. But then now there's like literally engineering things I didn't know that I just know, and now I just can do. So
right.
that when I sit down to write something, I can get you know, in a few days get really close to what something, what a finished product is going to sound like. And doing that has forced me to make a lot more choices that I used to leave up to chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think this is kind of like a technical way of thinking about it, but it's really made a huge difference. I don't wait for a producer to tell me.
Yeah.
I'm producing the next record.
Right.
Like completely. I'm not even bringing in another producer at all. And it's forced me to make choices that I normally wouldn't have had to make. It's also massively meticulous, and every single effect and every single thing trying to get it right. But then what's good about that is then I have to own it. Like I have to really think through like what I want this thing to sound like, and even the really weird stuff. I mean, it's, if you want to write like a big song that you think's catchy and cool, and I like writing big catchy songs sometimes, like then it's a lot of like, okay, make this happen. But even when you want something to be really weird, if something's gonna work, it's got, the details are gotta be fucking right, because if they're not, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
And sometimes translating that to other people or to a producer, I think, can get in the way of that. I don't know. This is all kind of an experiment.
Well, then that's obviously
it's unfolding
a huge
in real
streamline.
time. Right
Yeah.
now.
Well, and so how does your writing, stripping away the musical instruments and the software and the computers and the chords, stripping that away, how is your writing, creative energy, brain juice different now than it was as a songwriter than when you were a word writer, like a novel writer, or any type of, whether you're doing an article or whatever?
Yeah. It's less intellectual. It's more emotional in terms of the experience of it. Writing for me was like I was a pretty snarky writer. I just like to throw a bunch of ideas in the air and be like, ha, look at me, I can entertain you with my brain.
Yeah.
Fuck you. And there was a lot of like sarcasm and a lot of jokes and a lot of like wordplay and a lot of just like, I mean, writing always was really, really natural to me. Growing up, everyone knew I was going to be a writer. Like when I was, from the time I was like, I'm not kidding, like 6 years old.
Really?
I was just always just told stories. I always wrote stories. It was always like, how's the writing, Mikel? How's that going? From like an uncle at Christmas or something, you know. And so I always just knew it's what I wanted to do. Or just, it always made sense to me. I can't explain it.
Yeah.
Whereas music, for a long time, was really foreign to me. And I felt like this kind of like newcomer. And I still feel like sometimes I'll like write with Fitz sometimes. And he's just so facile with everything. He's so quick with melodies and harmonies and beats. And it's all very like, okay, here's the pre-chorus, and then we're going to do this, and then the bridge is like this, and then we're going to have this part come in, hold on, let me program it.
Yeah.
And then it's done, and I'm like, fuck, man, I like watch him work. And for me, it's like, I don't write like that. It's just like, I'll hear something, like, oh, that's cool. That makes me think about, you know, this.
Right.
And so, all right, today I'm going to write a song, you know, about this idea of how you project your innermost longings onto other people, and how there's this dance that goes, I'm writing a song right now about this idea called My Childish Bride. And like how you project what you actually sort of long onto other people as if they're real, when they're really just kind of constructs in your mind. Simultaneously, they're doing this with you. And so in a relationship, oftentimes you're just kind of in this orchestrated dance. And it can be sort of terrifying, and it can be really sweet. And at times it's really fucking sexy. Like there's just, it's complex, right? And so I'm writing this song about this idea. And literally it started with a beat and a thing on electric piano. And I was like, for some reason, that just made me think of that idea. It felt kind of close. And
So
I was like, all right, I'm going to write about this idea. And then I sort of wrote a stanza, and then I edited it, I'm not kidding, 10 times. And I'll just write and rewrite, write and rewrite, sing, write. And, oh, that's how I meant to say that. Yeah.
Okay.
There's this, like, I just wrote this line today. I finished the song this morning, and like, there's
What's
a
the
line.
line?
I think the idea, it was, and we stare at each other like a sister to a brother, like a pusher to a shover, like a secret to a cover, like a lover to a lover, under covers with the stereo on. And it's just this, with the stereo on. And I was like, yeah, I get that, dude. I understand. But it's not what you want. And I was just like, oh, man, this is good. Like I can
I get a little R&B feel in that.
Not at all, actually. It's
No,
actually,
but
it's
that-
kind of the stuttering beat, but it's not R&B at all. It's like clapped out, and it's weird. But the idea is, though, that the process, it's not ordered. I can't think about it.
Yeah.
I just kind of vibe it, and then it makes sense, and then I build on it, and then something kind of makes sense. But I have no idea how to get there when I start. And I forget that there's all these steps that I kind of know, because I've just done them so much that I don't even understand that I'm doing them. And I think, like, I know people who have music degrees, that these things get taught.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know the difference between Phrygian and Ionian and like these different scales. I don't read music. I don't want to read music. Like, I've chosen not to read music. It's not like I'm not smart enough to read music. I just like don't want to, because I don't want to relate to it in that way. And I don't know. It's like a dream that you're having, except for like it's like, you know what it's like? It's like, you know when you're dreaming right before you wake up and you know you're dreaming?
Right.
And you got about 10 seconds where you're like, I'm going to make the car fly.
Yeah.
I'm going to fucking do this. I know, go to a mountain. And in your head, you're like, yeah, I'm driving this dream. And then you wake up and you're pissed that it's over because those are always the best dreams because you can do anything, right? Writing a song is often like that. It's like a dream.
It'll come
where you
and
know
fade
you're,
in and out. And
well, or just that it's like you're in this kind of other world, but you're able to control where it goes.
How many songs, when you go into the studio, okay, so you're in this writing process right now. When you go in to officially make that record, how many of these ideas or half-baked elements will you bring into, okay, now we're going to start making a record? Or does it just constantly evolve? Is it just constantly like an evolutionary process where you're like, okay, I think we have, you know,
it depends. It's
14
record.
songs.
It depends record to record. The first record I wrote obsessively. I wrote like 100 songs. Second record I wrote obsessively. I wrote 50 songs. The third record I only wrote 10 because I felt like these 10 were the right ones, and I spent a ton of time trying to craft these 10. This record, my goal is to write 30, but in the process I think I've written 50, and also just endless, just different types of music that are just instrumentals. And like where they didn't quite go anywhere because I couldn't quite get the thing to work, and so you get like halfway down the road and you go, this isn't working, until you walk away. Then you come back later, you're like, you know, that 40 seconds of music is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so of that, there's an insane amount of music. And it's also way more, I loathe to use the word produced, but let's just say closer to being something you could actually listen to than I've ever done before.
Really?
Ever. I've always been one of these like shitty demoers who, I'm not joking, will sing into like an eyesight mic on my little Mac trying to get like a thing down, or into like I had a little handheld thing, you know, like police would use in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
No, like with a tape. And I would like sing into it like a line and then go back, rewind it, listen to it, rewind, listen to it, and then I'd write on pads. And I don't do that anymore. And the song, and then the demo would be kind of like gesturing at something that I sort of wanted to capture later, whereas now, you know, I did this for a few songs on the first record. Wishing Well, Sometime Around Midnight, Innocence, where my home recordings were basically done. Girls in Their Summer Dresses, Doesn't Mean You're Moving On, where by the time they were done, and like half of what you hear on the record is stuff I did in my apartment. Yeah. And that's how I'm doing this record, where it's just like, it's really close to done. And I don't want to reproduce it in some expensive fancy studio in Nashville or somewhere like Sunset Sound. I don't give a fuck. Like I want it to sound like how I want it to sound, because I spent, you know, whatever decision I made at like 3 a.m. after 10 hours of wrestling with how a kick drum should sound at this part of a song, or how much reverb the vocal should have, or what the compression rate should be, you know, on the fucking keyboard, or whatever it is. I trust that decision because at the end of like that, I don't want to redo it later, and I don't want someone else to redo it.
Right. Well, I want to, you kind of, when we were talking about, you know, your albums as kids, and you glanced over your first album a little bit, that album always seems to me, for any band, the album that would be, you know, you play those the longest. You know what I mean? Those are the ones that you're playing in the club to 4 people. Those are the ones that you're touring to cities where nobody's heard of you. You're playing them at South by, and it seems to me like those ones are, and especially on your album where it was so emotional, it was such a ride. It was like an album that would take you from tears to good time toe tapping tunes to, you know, to nostalgia. And it seems to me, and I'm sure a lot of fans and people tell you that, but looking back on it, is it a different, do you look at it back like a distant memory, like that was another lifetime ago?
No, it feels pretty close, particularly now, because this process is it's sort of like, I'm going through the same process now, and I didn't on the last 2 records that I did on the first record, except with a ton more tools. Okay. Where we didn't have a producer, so I just produced it, and we didn't have, like, I didn't think there was going to be fans, so I just wrote so many songs because I was just nervous no one was ever going to, like, care. Right. And I also didn't think that much about what our sound was, because we weren't known for a sound.
That's part of the element of doing the show outside of the choppers. Whatever.
That's good. It's impromptu. I like the extemporaneous things. But and that's kind of where I'm at now, where just everything's in play. I don't care if I like it; it's in play. We might have like pop songs on the next record. That I wrote one yesterday. I might. I don't know if I'll put that one on. But like we're just. I don't care. Yeah. Just whatever works. Sometimes it's a country shuffle, and sometimes it's a rock song, and sometimes it's a dance song, and sometimes it's kind of a lo-fi. I've been using a lot of like Boutique 78 beats and 808s lately, but I'll do things to them so they sound kind of cool. And you know, there's not going to be a ton of drumming on the next record. Darren's definitely going to play a bunch of stuff, but we're going to sort of mix it together with stuff that's programmed. And I don't care.
Do you feel like
I don't care about protecting a particular aesthetic. I don't fucking care. I just whatever.
Do you care
works.
about a radio single?
No, I mean, and yes and no, because here's my thoughts on that. No, because you can't write a radio single, and I mean maybe fucking Billy Joel Armstrong could or some shit, or Dave Grohl.
I mean, Dave Grohl's even said, he goes, I can go into the studio and write a song that I know is going to be on the radio.
Yeah, I
and
can't
write
do
it. Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But we've never been that kind of band. I mean, our songs that made it on the radio never really intended that way. Like, Timeless was a song about my grandparents dying. Hell and Back was a song about, like, yeah, great for a single on alternative radio.
Yeah.
You know, Sometime Around Midnight was a poem set to a bunch of delayed guitars that had, like, kind of a ramping up that told a story. And there was no chorus, there's no hook, there's no, like, you know, and Changin' was this weird little kind of overlaying guitar and keyboard parts that had like a stomp clap, like, and which at the time nobody was doing. Now everyone fucking stomp claps, and I'm like,
exactly.
God damn it!
Yeah. Well, and
but
going
at
back,
that time, nobody, like, there was no stomp clapping. We just did it because it sounded cool. So now, I guess what I want to say is that it's my theory is you can't write a radio song, which you have to
intentionally.
You have to just write a lot of music, and sometimes you write something that's really great, and if something's really great, people will play it because it's great. And that's not how most bands think. I realize that, or how many bands. That's definitely how I think, though, because I don't want to be known for something that's kind of superfluous. There's bands now, and I won't mention them, who are on the radio who I wouldn't want to play their songs. Like, and this isn't a diss. Like, I respect how hard it is to do what they're doing, and I respect how much work they put into it. And so it's not that I don't understand it as a musician. That's not easy. It's just not my thing, and I wouldn't want to be a musician if it meant I'd have to sing their songs. And
No,
so, like,
absolutely.
what's the point?
And there's a lot of bands that get a free pass. I mean, I'll name the names. You know, Linkin Park comes out with an album. Foo Fighters come out with an album. Pearl Jam. A lot of these legendary bands, or even like something more recently that's done really well. If Lumineers came out with a new album, like there's going to be, and you guys were there's going to be attention paid.
Yeah, we're in that category, though. I don't mind being in that category.
No, absolutely, because and there's nothing to take. I'm not taking away anything from any of those bands because they're all talented, but they're the ones that get the meeting. They're the ones that get the new music spin, the spin, regardless of what it is, because there's fans out there that want to hear what they're doing.
Well, so you fight for that. I mean, you know.
And you guys have, and it
we
takes a long
sold
time
4
to
million
get that.
songs.
Yeah, no, I
sometimes
know.
like a new band will be like, we sold 10 grand, and I'm like, that's great.
Yeah, good for you, kid.
No, I mean, I don't mean it as a diss. I literally mean that's great. And like, there's
there.
a really long road, and I guess I don't, but I also don't feel like we deserve it. And also, no, if we write bad music, no one will care. Like, because you can get that, you know, that moment where, you know, people are going to listen to your record, and I won't name bands, but like that are sort of legacy bands. And they'll come out with a new song, and people will play it, but nobody fucking wants to hear it. So it's on for like 2 weeks.
Right.
I really believe the really great music rises to the top, and the Lumineers is actually a great example of that. Like that Hey Ho song, that's a really good song.
It's a great song, and
Lumineers are not what you would probably consider like a band that I would love. They're super talented. That guy is fucking talented as a songwriter. Their band, they nailed the sound. And they also, like, I just really like, I don't think you're right for him. I'm like, first time I heard that, I was like, God, good line, man.
Yeah.
It just kind of hit me. And it would never have occurred to me to write what they were writing. And they sort of just kind of put it out.
So
it started
simple.
on like an indie, and then it moved up to a mate, and like they kind of just worked. And it just, people liked it. You know, Monsters and Men is another really good example of that.
There's
I mean,
been
if
a
you
lot
want to
of
go
those
back
lately.
far enough, Mumford & Sons actually a really good example of that, which people take the piss because they have like, they don't like their fans, but you can't, like, those were great songs.
Yeah, and the music industry is littered with those. And some of them will have 20 albums and be really successful. Some we'll never hear from again. Gautier, I mean, he wrote one of the most heartbreaking songs right up against Sometime Around Midnight over the last 10 years, and that guy can't get a cab anywhere. And it's like...
But that's the thing. It's like, he got the meeting. I'm speaking to your point about the meeting. He got the meeting, but for whatever reason, I don't even remember what the next song was, but I mean, I guess that's the point. Nobody does really. And that's not a diss on him. My point is, if people really like your music, they're going to play it. And that's not to say that, I mean, we're just talking about radio, because we have, you know, if you look at a band like Grizzly Bear, like, you know, they got where they are without radio. They're just like a great, you know, band of musicians who are making challenging. The National is probably like the biggest band in rock and roll right now after Arcade Fire in terms of newer bands that aren't like U2 or something. And
Arctic Fire or Arctic
Monkeys.
Arctic Monkeys.
Arctic Fire.
Arctic Fire. That'd be good.
That's what we're changing our name to.
No,
Arctic Fire.
Both, and I would argue that Arcade Fire really didn't have a ton of airplay. I mean,
No, of course not. Funeral was the best record anyone put out in the aughts. Like from 2000 to 2010, Funeral was the best record. Everybody knows it. And so, like, you're like, okay, well, you know, and we put out a record in the aughts. I don't think our record's better than Funeral was. I mean, I think it's close, to be honest with you, our first record. But I think that you can't fuck with that record. It's like the first Strokes record, or like, you know, Elephant by the White Stripes. There's certain records you can't fuck with that you're just like, they put out a great music. And it doesn't need the radio. Well, these things that we're talking about are kind of like how radio works. The sort of indie rock world works on a different, there's a different set of rules. There's kind of different currency. And to some extent, it's a zero sum. Like, you can't continue. Like, if Graceless was cut up into a pop song, which it could be if they would lose the second verse that comes before the first, like the chorus doesn't come into like a minute 40, and if they would lose the 50 seconds and just by the National Graceless put that chorus sooner, they probably could have put that song on the radio. And
it's so funny you say that, because I always, just from being in radio, I always hear a song and go, well, if it was 3:15 instead of 4:15, and if this hook was here, and if this verse was dropped,
they don't care. And
no, they
also,
don't. They shouldn't.
They would probably lose fans, because they're not going to get the same fans of, like, that are radio fans of, you know, that would listen to, you know, I don't know what band to mention, but like, let's just say, or maybe they would, but then there's a lot of people, you know, in indie rock who just, so much of it's about identity with indie rock. It's, you know, it's about the fact that something isn't popular. You take the exact same music and you just play it for a wider audience, and there's a certain subset, and it's a small percentage, but those people are not going to listen to it. And like bands like, say, Grizzly Bear or Animal Collective or something, like they're kind of doing something else. They're making challenging music that sets out to be challenging, and part of the experience that you're having when you're listening to the music is feeling like it's kind of like jazz. Like, you know, it's cool to say you like jazz. I fucking hate jazz, but I'm not a very evolved human being, and I know that. But like, part of what you're gaining out of the experience is the sense that you have a refined musical palette, which in some cases is true. I think there are people who truly just, that's all they want to hear. And then I think probably 50% of the people are doing it because they think it's cool.
Yeah, and it's.
I saw Grizzly Bear at the Greek, and like half the people there were talking through the whole show.
Oh yeah,
and they didn't know the songs. All they knew was 2 weeks, and they didn't know like half. But then there were some who loved it. And you're never going to pin down some hipster and like actually be like, okay, name 5 Animal Collective songs. He'll name 3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and
because he doesn't really know. And he'll be like, and he's wearing his Animal Collective T-shirt, and he put it on during his photo shoot or some shit. But like, he really, you know, but he knows 10 songs by the Killers. He just won't admit it.
Yeah. No, it's totally true.
And the National, you know, they're playing a different sort of game. And by the way, I love the National. I think they're probably my favorite modern band. You know, my favorite bands typically aren't on the radio. So like the rules. There's this weird kind of identity thing that goes on.
But music's an acquired taste, art's an acquired taste, but there is that Da Vinci Code, that lock that you can put together that is a mass appeal, like a family reunion song, like a Mumford & Sons, Sometime Around Midnight, Go TA. These are songs like Ho Hey. These are all bands that you can play for everybody, and and everybody's going to enjoy it.
You can't write those. I mean,
you write them by accident.
You write a lot of music, and every now and then you write something great. And like Bruce Springsteen, before he made Born in the USA, made Nebraska. You know, and like he wrote a lot of music, and he wrote those songs. They're all around the same time. It's just then he decided to make a lo-fi record. Then he decided to make. He's like, fuck it, I'm going to go 180 the other direction and make a pop record. I mean, listen to Born in the USA. That is a pop song. That whole record is so pop. If you go back and listen to Born to Run or Darkness at the Edge of Town or whatever. So to some extent, I think you just write a lot of music.
Yeah.
And you don't think too much about that. Because if you try to write a single, and you know, you can tell when a band's going for it. You know this.
Course.
When you're like, and it's not quite connecting, that's the worst.
Well, you know
when you're like, oh, dude, they just really tried to do the really obvious thing here, and it sucks so much. I hate it so much. I hate them for doing
the biggest problem is that trends change. So like there was and it's still going on, a hyper pop sound in alternative radio. So you have bands in the studio right now matching that. But in a year, guitars may come back, and you're going to be left sounding like the Mumford and Sons from, you know, like the Mumford and Sons.
Mumford and Grandsons.
Yeah, I mean, like all that stuff.
Mumford and Cousins.
Like those banjo songs that aren't going to get on the radio again. Like that's, you can't come out.
Right. If you, I mean, look at that conga song. That's got a fucking accordion at the top. I would love it though if like now like the next some bands like, oh, well, you need an accordion.
That's what happens. Oh, dude, don't even get me started on that. I want to talk to you about Muses, not the band Muse, but you.
Muse.
I know, right? They're
They're like the rock equivalent of Queen.
Yeah, they can't do
The
wrong.
modern rock equivalent of Queen.
You've had muses and inspirations and stuff like that. Not influences from music is something that I like to talk to about. Bands that aren't in, or artists that aren't in their 20s, that are in their 30s or 40s, and I've talked to like Nikki Sixx and Duff and Slash and these guys that have.
These guys are way older than you.
And
Right?
I know that, and Chris, but you've had a lot of experience, and I'm getting to like things about your health and family tragedies and things like that. That how much of those things affect your songwriting, and would someone who's had the needle in his arm half of his life. Would your music and your career be different if that didn't happen? And, Nikki.
No, I think it's still too soon to tell, because I'm only
Can you manufacture
6 or 7 years into this, and I'm surprisingly having this crazy little moment right now. And I don't know. It's hard to say because continue to sort of learn new things. I continue to feel challenged, and I'm writing like. My life depends on it right now, and I haven't done that in a long time. I haven't done that since the first record, where I'm just writing so much, and it's like the whole world hangs in the balance. Mm-hmm. So I think it's too soon to tell. I don't know. I think there's a why did Axl Rose go crazy? If you're talking about that generation of dudes, like why did he go crazy and never put out another record? I don't know. Why did he go from being one of the best pop rock songwriters, because that stuff's pop rock. Let's face it. You know,
now
to being like, I don't know what he ended up doing. You know what I mean? I don't know the answer to that. But if you're asking about like whether or not there's a perspective to be gained, sure. But I mean, you got a musical talent.
Yeah.
Like you got to translate it, and what you write about, I think, isn't so much as important as your ability to translate it to something that people engage with. Like, what's that Phanogram song about? Like, Fall in Love? Like, is that what it's called, Fall in Love? Yeah. I love that song. I love Phanogram in general, but, like, Mouthful of Diamonds is probably, like, my favorite one by them. But, like, I mean, I don't even know what it's about, to be honest. I just know she goes, you are falling out something I may be. Like, I couldn't tell you what that song's about, but it's great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's sleigh bells sing about ever? I don't even know.
Exactly. Oh,
but the point is that they're genius at translating something, and there's some voodoo and witchcraft in that.
But they're making an emotion with the music, where like the beats and the kind of the visceral vibe of what they're creating.
We're doing that. I mean, go back.
Absolutely.
You keep bringing up Midnight. Like, go back and listen to the way the guitars ride in Midnight. Think about how that reverb.
But you were able
changes.
to do it with lyrics too.
Oh,
I'm
right.
saying to be able to do it with. I think
but
personally,
I think
the songwriting right now in like modern rock or alternative rock, whatever you call it, is dog shit. Yeah. Like there has not been, if you ask somebody what's the 10 best songs written in the last 15 years, it would be really hard to come up with them. And I mean meaningful, like good, well-written songs. And I'm not talking about the bridge. I'm not talking about the instrumental intro. So.
Like a great song that if you played it as a punk song, if you played it on acoustic guitar, if you played it as a polka, if you it would still be great.
Exactly.
No, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I agree. There's not a ton of emphasis placed in the alternative world on songwriting. There is a lot in the pop world still.
Oh, for sure.
Look at like Adele is a good example of that, or Beyonce.
And I think it's the audience demands it. You have that adult contemporary audience. The soccer moms, they want to be able to attach to the lyrics like they did with Madonna when they were growing up and Janet Jackson.
Are you talking about like Soccer Mom Radio?
Yeah, like
we've never been on that.
I know, no, I know.
Like
but that's what
I wish we had. That audience is massive.
I know.
We're just stuck over here in alternative rock doing our thing.
No, you guys have got on a handful of different
really.
AAA stations.
What's funny is actually our audience is it's grown tremendously in the last 3-4 years, and I don't know why. Like I kind of
I know.
suspect. Well, I have some suspicions, but there's no real like reason you could say like, well, they had this hit and then they had this hit, and like our touring, like we're playing the Greek in October, and I have no fucking idea why we're playing the Greek in October. Like we haven't why we've grown. I don't even know where it's come from. I feel like it's if you go to an Airborne show though, I know that if you ask people their favorite song, they'll give you 10 different answers.
Right.
And
That's good.
It's I think sometimes I felt like I had a hold on it. Like, oh, we just toured a lot and we met a lot of people. But it wasn't really just that. Or like, you know, I couldn't tell you why. It's a mystery to me. It defies all rules of the music industry. There's no, like, I would never say to you, okay, here's how you get a large touring base. Other than, take your songwriting seriously.
Well, you got to tour a lot.
Take your shows seriously. We played 1,000 shows. That
I mean, that's another thing. You guys are all seasoned, talented musicians at what you do, and you've just toured relentlessly.
Yeah, that's true, I suppose. But I don't I'm always confused. We're doing like this next tour we're gonna do. You know, we just did the routing, and I'm like, really?
You've come a long way.
I was like giggling. I was like, how is this our tour?
I remember when after I saw you in I think it was 08 or 07 at South by, you came back and you played at 98.7, and I remember talking to you guys after you performed, and you're like, you know, I was asking you, when are you going to get signed? You know, I know you guys are talking to some people, and you went later that day and signed a deal with Major Domo. And your line was, we better sign soon because we owe a lot of people money.
Yeah, we really do.
Have you paid everybody back?
Yeah, no, it's surprisingly.
You got a little in the bank now?
A little bit.
I hope so.
It's not, I mean, we're not like, you know, racing helicopters and having monkey knife fights in the basement. Like, we're not completely off the reservation. And nor do we want to be. I mean, my perspective now is I just want to create these beautiful little moments of art, and I want to continue to make music that surprises me and excites me and makes me feel like, yeah, this is what I really want to play. But I couldn't tell you why we've grown. I don't understand it, because it's not because of like singles. It's not because of like syncs. Although we've had a lot of singles and we've had a lot of syncs, but but there's no linear connection between, or there's no like correlation between the two.
Can I make an
There's just been like this, and then it went like this, and then it went like this, and then and like it started like this really, and it's just been like it's almost like there was like 10 people, and now the like million or so fans or whatever we have all just somehow know someone that knows those 10 people. Yeah. It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. We just told people, and then they kind of knew, and then this happened, and then just I don't know. We're just still here.
I mean, I did just for the other day, for shits and giggles, went online and tried to find, so that I could poke it in your ribs, a bad live Airborne Toxic event review. And I could not find a bad review of an Airborne Toxic event show. So you have that. I also think you guys are incredibly identifiable with lyrics, relatable. And you have a chick. You have an Asian dude. She's have a short guy.
She's a very talented
musician
who
I had the biggest crush on Anna.
Tremendously to the band. But in her defense, I just want to say this: like
she's not a chick.
No, I know you know that, but I want to be really clear. There are some bands that have a chick.
Just for the sake
Anna
of having
is definitely
one.
not that. Anna, or like it's eye candy, or she brings some sort of feminine presence. Anna's a badass musician, and I feel really lucky to have her as somebody I collaborate with. So,
super dynamic.
It doesn't hurt that she's easy on the eyes, but having said that, I have massive respect for her just talent.
Yeah.
And work ethic. She works really hard.
All you guys do, yeah. And Noah's on paternity leave.
Yeah.
For when's he coming back?
Yeah, I don't know.
Back just.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. How's your health?
Good.
Yeah.
Everything's good. You know, a lot of the health stuff that happened on the first record that we talked about a lot, I feel like was in like a first press release. Well, no. I was fine.
Well, no. Here's why I say that. But let me back up, and I don't mean like. Because it's
the
like
heroin is taking its toll.
Right. No, but like I have, like I was born with heart defects. I've had 5 heart surgeries.
No shit, I didn't know.
Yeah. So I have a stent in my aorta. I have a scar down my chest, around my back.
Awesome.
And people always
the scars look cool. Are you always like? Oh, that's so awesome. That's some Game of Thrones shit right there.
I'm flashing Mikel right
that's
now.
like,
yeah. Look, the one around
the Lord of Light has brought me back. That's the nerdiest
that's the knife
thing
fight
I've
one.
ever said. Yeah, it looks like you were stabbed by like some dude in a suit of armor. It's distracting me because so much manliness.
So much skin. But my point is about that story is that I'm always, people got to know me as that guy, growing up. People got to know you as that guy.
Oh, I
So
see.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that
so
makes
like
sense.
I don't know you as that. I know
I
you
don't
as
know.
a strapping young man. But
I
let
ran
me-
track at Stanford. I was like,
Dude, I
an
played
elite runner.
basketball. Yeah.
And like I still run and I still work out a lot, and it's weird. I don't. I'm like, my doctor tells me I'm the healthiest patient. Yeah.
Well, tell people what you're diagnosed with. And
I have
it's
autoimmune disorder. Everybody has it.
yeah.
You know those kids that like have asthma and are allergic to everything growing up, and you're like, they're always just sick with something.
Right.
They have autoimmune disorder. That's what I have.
But yours is more
Mine's a little more pronounced.
right
but,
because
yeah.
I did a Mike McCready from Pearl Jam has Crohn's disease.
Oh, that sucks. Crohn's is the worst thing. Well, not the worst, but one of the worst things that you can get. Autoimmune disorder is like a roulette wheel, where it's like you have an overactive immune system, and what it does is it attacks different parts of your body for no reason at all, just because it felt like it, and because it's an asshole. And it's like a roulette wheel where there's like 70 different things that you can get. And it's like you spin the wheel, and it's like, boom, vitiligo, which is one of the ones that I have, or boom, hypoglycemia, which is also one that I have, or boom, fucking Crohn's disease, which sucks.
Mhm.
And there's no reason for it. There's no precedent. It just happens one day.
And what is vitiligo?
You're 25, you're fine. By 26, you have Crohn's disease, and you're puking up your food every night.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
What is vitiligo?
Vitiligo is that thing that Michael Jackson had, where your skin turns like you lose like the
Oh,
pigment.
the pigment
Yeah.
fades.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but you're
It's
also
not that big a deal in white people. It's actually really, really hard for like people who have darker pigment, like if you're African American.
Oh, yeah.
Or I guess African, I suppose. Or if you're Latino or something. But basically, if you have darker skin tones, you're
Mhm.
fucked, because it's really noticeable.
prominent. Yeah.
And those people, I feel bad because they look really sick, and they're not at all. They're just losing some pigment.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to say
And
is
it's
that
hard on them, I think.
you
So
sit
then
here.
for me, if you're a white guy and you just have, it's like, oh, this patch is a little more white than the rest of me. It's like, yeah, big fucking deal.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? Nobody even notices.
And you watch your diet. You're in good shape. You're not drinking anymore.
I drink, but it's
You're
not
dri-
that much.
You just drink occasionally.
I'm like
yeah.
a 2-drink guy. these
2-drink
days.
max?
Yeah, like maybe a couple times a week, if that. Although I've been on a health kick lately.
What do you do? What do you do for exercise?
I run, and I just do the gym, and I do all kinds of like weird, just things that keep you healthy.
Do you have to? Do you?
I used to
are you-
lift weights, and I stopped on the All at Once tour. Me and Noah had a thing where we would do this thing called the executive workout, and we'd do push-ups and pull-ups and push-ups and pull-ups, and I like everywhere we went, like backstage, everything. And I got kind of buff, and I had to stop because I have, I have all these little cool little shirts and shit,
Right.
and like my arms would be like, pfft, and I was like, okay, that's a little. That's a little too much.
That's a
And
good
I was like,
problem to have.
I literally had to stop. Like my clothes were starting to fit weird because I was starting to become one of those dudes, and I was like, I don't want to be that guy, so I stopped.
Well, do
But
you,
it's mostly cardiovascular stuff. I swam a lot for a long time, and I still run when we're on tour. A
Yeah.
lot.
and do you have to take anything? Do you have to? You go in for regular checkups or
Yeah,
anything?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, my doctor,
Yeah.
like, he was like, you're the healthiest patient I have. I wish I could. I could send your blood work to like other doctors. Like my resting pulse is like 48.
That's
My
great.
blood pressure. I mean, it's just like it's stupid. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that's so un-rock star.
Well, no, it's because
I'm not really a rock star though.
Well, if you wanted to capitalize on it, you could
It's a lot of
become a
pressure if you're a rock
spokesperson.
star to like fuck girls and be unhealthy and be an asshole, and I don't want to do any of those things.
Well, you've had your share of women on the road. Let's talk about girls. You've had a few
Not really.
girlfriends, few broken hearts.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that. The vibe for the Airborne thing is mostly like we all have a lot of friends and family, and very often, you think about backstage, this crazy place where you meet groupies, man. And, like, it's not like that at all. You have stage, and like somebody's aunt is there.
You're right.
And, like 3 people somebody went to college with, and then like your tour manager, and everyone's just. Our crew is co-ed, and everyone just like it's like a fucking commune. It's like a kibbutz. Like everyone just gets along. Like,
Yeah.
Everyone just it's not it's not that kind of shady vibe, and there's no drugs in the band. I would like to think that.
Well, you guys are super boring. I'm just
Yeah. No, we are.
and you've always been that way.
Because
And
I
that,
think that what we're doing is we're trying to we take our jobs as musicians seriously, and for me, I'm always thinking about the show, how to make the show great, how to write a song that's really good, and it actually surprisingly requires a lot of attention.
yeah,
And I don't kid myself that I can phone it in and be good at it. It's really hard.
yeah.
Anyone who says it's easy is lying or they suck at it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really hard to put on a good show, and it's really hard to write great songs. And for me, anyway, at this point in my life, it requires 100% of my attention. There's no other. My attention is nowhere else, but there. And if I was strung out and whatever, it just wouldn't work. I mean,
Well,
not to say that I haven't met people on the road. Like, I definitely have. But, you know, it'll be things like I dated a girl in Ireland for a while. Like we met this girl in Ireland, and then we dated for like 3 months. And I spent a ton of time in Ireland, and I wrote a song about it. It's like this dirge about like the sort of nature of Irish folklore and whatever. I don't know. And I mean, that's my experience with it. It's not like, yeah, then there's recognition.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, but I
literally
guess
none of that.
you've had a lot of relationships though. You've had relationships when you've been on the road, home. You've had some long-term girlfriends. You never been married?
No.
Never engaged?
No.
Something you'd want to do? You want to have kids?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, absolutely. At this point, for a long time, I'd say, from the time I was just started writing until, you know, probably recently, like I just didn't give a fuck. I just wanted to be an artist, and I didn't care how crazy I had to go in the process, how weird my life would end up looking. You know, I think somewhere I made this bargain with myself where I was like, okay, I suck at life, so I'm not going to try and be good at life. I can be good at art, so I'm going to do that. And that's how I approached writing short stories. That's how I approached writing the 2 novels. That's how I approached even like journalism was just out there. And I wanted to be one of these people who sort of didn't live by any kind of proprietary rules. And I didn't. I was, you know, I never had a job. I lived on a horse ranch for a while as a ranch hand. I played like poker for a while to like make money sometimes. I did all kinds of different writing things. And anything that just, you know, was shady, like that I was into it. Anything that just, where I didn't have to follow. And then I read like tremendously, and I wrote probably 1 million words at, you know, by the time I was 30, and like I just didn't care. I'd be walking around Los Feliz at 3 a.m. with a bottle of scotch and an umbrella for no reason in like a 3-piece suit, because I didn't fucking care, and I wanted to be
Different.
An artist, and that was all I cared about. And the extent to which there was any kind of trade-off between like, oh, but if you do this, then you can settle down and have a life. I didn't fucking care. I was like violent against that whole idea, because I wanted to think, let's say I was more John than Paul. I guess. Right. You know, and I think in the last few years I feel myself becoming more Paul. Almost more Paul Simon, I'd say. Like he's someone I really admire.
Would you ever do writing?
Like it's changed. It's in the last few years it's changed. And what's happened now I think is I'm much more at
Mature.
ease. Mature might be an overstatement, but let's say at ease with where I am as an artist. I know it's not going to change. I know I can continue writing. I know I'll probably, if I work really hard at it, it'll continue to be interesting and hopefully rewarding. And
you're a career musician at this point.
Yeah, I guess at this point. But and like the other changes. But then having said that, my priorities are actually, you know, friends and family, and having some sort of sense of like emotional kind of like life that isn't completely insane. Whereas I not only had that, I sought it out at one point. I didn't care, especially like, you know, when the band first started. I didn't fucking care at all about anything. And I would be the guy just like, and I was the guy like drunk off his ass at South by Southwest running up a $2,300 tab at the Driscoll that I dropped on American Records to pay for example. Like stuff like that, because they were trying to sign us, and like invited all my friends, and there's 20 of us, and we were just the assholes wasted in some like super hoity hotel, and then make some label pay for it, even though we didn't sign with them.
Right.
And I had no intention of it doing it, or shit like that, or just, and like it was fun, it was irresponsible, it was cool, and there was some of that on the road too for the first record for sure. But then, you know, at some point you can only do that for so long before it starts to feel really shallow. And it's also not why you wanted to write. You wanted to write because you're a storyteller. You wanted to write because you wanted to create art. And that hasn't gone away. If anything, I think some of the partying and whatnot, I conflated with the art. When it wasn't, it was actually distracting. And it got to a point where it was distracting. And I was like, you know what, I just want to refocus, you know. And I met a lot of other artists who were much more sober individuals who sort of taught me, you know, like, hey, man, these are two different things, and you're going to fucking kill yourself if you keep doing this.
Yeah. No, especially doing it day in, day out. Curious, what grade would you give your record label in terms of their relationship with you?
Island / Def Jam.
Right.
They're now two labels, Island, Def Jam.
How would you...
you know they split, right?
Yeah. No, I did, yeah.
I don't know. I kind of feel like that's I don't know, it's like asking me about my parents or something. Like I can't really speak with strangers about that, like in any way publicly, because it feels like like I have frustrations with them, but then they've also really come through at times. But like it's like your brother, where you're like, you can talk shit on your brother, but if anyone else talks shit on your brother, you're gonna pound him. You know what I mean? And I feel that way. Like there's people that were there that would just kill for us.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then some other people I felt like, you know, it wouldn't. And so it's I don't really, I don't know. I feel like it's not in good taste to take them to task in any kind of public way. Does that make sense?
No, that's a good way to answer the question, because obviously, like any situation, there's going to be pros and cons and good days and bad days.
Yeah.
Days.
I mean, it's a business, and you know, at the end of the day, that like people mostly are in it because they love music. You know, and then you can imagine all the different ways that can change over someone's career, and all the different ways that can affect you. I mean, mostly people lie.
Right.
In the music industry. Yeah. I mean, but that's probably true in software. You know, it's probably true in...
I think there's a little bit more of a scramble in the entertainment business because there's only so many seats. You know what I mean? There's only so much airtime on the radio. And so
That might be true. I'm not sure. I honestly don't know as much about that stuff as I probably could, because I don't really want to be part of it. Like, you just talked to Pete for a long time. Like, I trust Pete with a lot of that stuff because I want to
shield yourself a little bit.
I don't want to think about it like that.
Yeah.
And like there's a way in which it's kind of like you limit your interactions in the world to the ones that are going to serve your goal at the moment. And like for now, and certainly throughout my music career, and definitely like in the last, let's say, 6 months, like that's been writing. And so I sort of create this cocoon around myself on purpose.
Yeah.
I'm around my friends, my close friends, my old friends and family, and that's it. And then I'm just writing alone 10 hours a day. There's a few people I let into that process, but for the most part, I don't. So it's a similar kind of thing as a whole. You want to be like a creative person. I don't want to focus too much on, because I do think, you spend too much time trying to figure out how the music industry works, then you set out to be successful in the music industry. And if you set out to be successful in the music industry, you can really climb that ladder if you're good at it.
Yeah.
I just don't. It's like I was saying before. There's bands that are much bigger than us, or artists that are as big as us, or some that are smaller than us, whatever. That I just wouldn't want their catalog. And if the trade-off, if there was like some sort of like trade-off, like some kind of Faustian bargain where it was like, okay, you can become 10 times as big as you are. 10's probably an exaggeration, because like let's say 5, whatever it is. You can become you can become some huge band, but you have to play these songs that you don't like. Would you do it? And I'm like, no fucking way. Or then even if the choice was you have to do that or quit, I would quit.
Oh yeah,
because I just don't want to do it. And so I think I've learned through the years that if I focus too much on how the music industry works, then I'm focused on writing to please that music industry. And I have a whole other set of things I'm trying to write for.
Which catalog would you love to perform or own?
Ooh.
That that you could call your own?
I mean, I'm still pretty impressed with 80s era U2. I still think, like, I look back and those are just some of the best songs I've ever written. Joshua Tree, I still think that's, like, amazing. Like, I don't know how you write those songs. I've actually spent a lot of time thinking about how does he write those songs. I don't know. He doesn't write them anymore.
No, he doesn't.
Like,
It's unfortunate.
there was a while there where it was just, like, how do you write something so perfect and soulful and it just flowed? You know, so that, the National, I hate the National because they're just so good. They're so fucking good that I hate them. And like their whole process is amazing. You have to have a lot of talented people. They're kind of like Pavement in a weird way, like where they're just kind of a bunch of different personalities, kind of swirling together and making a product at the end of the day that is the result of a lot of talented people working really hard at something collectively, which is not really how Airborne works. And it's just gorgeous. You know, Arcade Fire, like, you know, I look at them and just think they're like royalty. They're like the indie rock, like Wynn and Regina are like the indie rock king and queen, right?
Yeah,
like
for sure.
And they deserve it. I don't
it's
take
the piss.
More
of the
I don't take the piss. I love them. I think they're wonderful. I look at them and I'm just like, this is great what they've done. You know. And then there's some newer bands that I'm just really liking what they're doing. Like Twin Shadow, I kind of love what George is doing with his music right now. You know, Phanogram, that band Broods from New Zealand, which I think is like really good, and I think they're gonna make some waves in the next year. And I'm just sort of like I I sort of envy their freshness with it, where they just don't fuck. They inherited a set of rules and they want to break those rules in interesting ways.
Yeah.
And I respect that a lot. And like I'm like, yeah, me too.
There needs to be more rule breaking, I think, and I think that's gotten a little bit away from music.
Yeah.
Well,
in pop music for sure, but there's still a lot of rule breaking going on. I mean, with like, I don't know, you ever listen to like Kindness, or you ever listen to like, you know, what's the thing I've been listening to?
But I'm talking about rule breaking, like when it was dangerous to put stuff, you know, like music was dangerous. Like there was, but I don't know that it can happen because we live in a society that's not shocked by anything. So, you know, like...
What are you talking about, like...
I'm talking about, like...
exploding heavy metal or something?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm talking about stuff that would get on the radio in the 80s and 90s, and things that were put in the face of mainstream that people couldn't handle.
Odd Future, Frank...
I was going to say Tyler, the Creator.
Odd Future and Frank Ocean, you know...
Yeah. That's been probably
Earl
the most...
Sandwich, but, like,
Earl
absolutely...
Sweatshirt?
Earl Sweatshirt. I say Earl the Sandwich.
I'm stealing Sandwich. I'm going...
Sorry, the song with Sandwiches. That's
Sandwiches are a great
song.
Yeah.
Sorry, but...
there's a handful of them out there, yeah.
Here Comes Mr. I Don't Give a Fuck. That's the Sandwiches riff.
Yeah.
That's a great little riff. But I'd say that they're doing that. Frank Ocean. I mean,
for sure.
To be an R&B person, R&B / hip-hop / pop songwriter, and just basically tell everyone you're gay or bi, or like right as your record comes out, that was some brave shit. That was dangerous.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like now it wouldn't be as dangerous because in the last 5 years, this country's like had this tremendous turnaround when it comes to like gay culture and the acceptance of people just not being fucking straight, and that's what obviously been a great thing. But like at the time, that was dangerous. So I don't know if I agree. I just don't know if it can't be dangerous in the same way as it was.
Yeah,
because it's already happened.
Well, and also because I don't think that radio, terrestrial radio especially, isn't going to step out on something like that just because there's so many restraints. That you can't play an Odd Future record. You can't play a Tyler the Creator. You know, you can play the safe track.
Yonkers got a lot of play, didn't it? Didn't Yonkers get a bunch of play?
Might have got a little bit
like
on
Power
Urban.
106.
Maybe it
like
got a little bit on Urban. Yeah.
I thought it did pretty well. I mean, that shit's got like 40 million views on YouTube.
Yeah.
That video is awesome. Where he hangs himself at the end.
Would you ever?
That's pretty dangerous. He eats a bug.
That
video
was insane.
And then he hangs
dude.
himself.
That in video.
What are you talking about? There's no rule breaking. Like, how is that not rule breaking?
We got one example from 3 years ago.
I see what you're saying. Like,
you know what I mean? And
who's doing it daily?
Well, no. Who's doing it in rock right now? Who's doing it?
Well, rock's dead. Rock and roll is dead.
Oh my God! Should I just end this interview right? Should I just hit stop?
No, but it is. The idea of what rock and roll is dead. It's dated. It's like not that rebellious to fucking stand there and play a power chord.
It's a cliched term.
With a tattoo and a tattered jacket. Like, whoa, look at you. You're so bad. You're doing the same thing people did 40 fucking years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Like, so, I mean, I guess, it's like kind of like how, like, if your parents smoke weed, what do you care about weed?
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal, right?
Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, the attitudes or the sense of counterculture that goes along with, rock and roll is dead, because it's not. But I just don't think it's affiliated with that rock mix. That basically there was a mix that Nirvana, from Nirvana through literally, I want to say, I don't know, maybe even like 3 years ago, there was one mix. There was an idea of what a rock song was.
Yeah.
And it had to do with a live sounding drum, a bass at like 70% volume that's a little bit distorted, guitars that aren't really leads but are kind of arpeggiated kind of little things, and then some singer singing a thing. And everything was mixed just so it sounded like people that were playing this. And you can go from like Nirvana to Kings of Leon. Yeah. And then it all just kind of changed at one point in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I know what you're talking about.
Well, it started to change, but at this point it's like over.
Oh, it's done, yeah.
But that's my point. It's over. But, that doesn't mean that there's not new music. It's just it's not going to come with people playing those instruments in that way. We've heard it.
Right.
It's like jazz. At some point, you've heard it.
You've heard it all, yeah.
And
it's all been done.
like who's doing the latest in jazz? I don't know. They already did all that shit like 50 years ago. And
right.
then it got to like classical music, same thing. Like, not that those as art forms don't continue to evolve, but as popular art forms, they've done all the things that are going to exhaust their particular brand of aesthetics in the popular mind. And at this point now, there's got to be new ones. I mean, there's this huge fight going on right now between Arcade Fire and Deadmau5, right? So Arcade Fire played Coachella, and Wynn said something along the lines of, a tip of the hat to all the people still playing real instruments, which, you know, I thought was a pretty benign thing to say. Like, who cares? Like, he just thought it was like a, you know, he takes pride in the fact that his band plays instruments, and I think that's all he meant by that. I don't think he thinks people who don't are less talented or anything. Because also, like, they've got a bunch of programming on their new record too. So that's all. Actually, I'm not sure about that. It sounds like they have programming. They may not because they're Arcade Fire, but whatever. Point is, I think that's all he meant. Deadmau5 took exception to this, and he said on a series of tweets basically saying, like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
Like, a computer is a tool. It's not an instrument. I still gotta create all this
Mix
stuff.
it, yeah.
I gotta mix. Well, not just mix. I have to score. I have to arrange. I have to write. I have to do what Mozart did.
Yeah.
Is Mozart not a musician?
Yeah.
You know, I think that was his point.
He's
you know,
just using
Skrillex,
different tools, yeah.
Skrillex, that motherfucker's a crazy composer. You ever listen to some of those melodies and the kind of the harmonic changes he goes through, and, like, you know, he's known for those big beats and the sort of dubstep thing, I guess. But there's a crazy amount of scoring that's way, I would argue, harder than just playing a riff on guitar, which is not, you know, or let's say a standard riff on guitar. He's a virtuoso at it.
Yeah.
So the point I'm just trying to make is that it doesn't mean that there doesn't continue to be innovation or sort of a rebellious attitude or a desire in popular music to kind of buck convention, because that's very much alive. It just doesn't get expressed with four guys in tattered vests playing two guitars and a bass and a drum set that's mixed a certain way, because that's basically what happened for like 20 fucking years.
Well, and unless the lyrics are remarkable, unless the lyrics are so good.
I disagree. It's the mix. Listen to Imagine Dragons. That shit's mixed like hip-hop. That shit is not like that. Like Time to Begin, which I think is a really good song. People give them a lot of shit. You know, you're not supposed to like Imagine Dragons if you're cool. I like Imagine Dragons.
I like it. The first time I ever
like
heard
that
Imagine
song.
Dragons was standing right there in that kitchen.
Yeah.
And I said, dude, you got a hit on your hands.
I like that song. I'm, you know,
Because it's a little, it's different.
But my point is, what's so creative about that song is that they said, fuck this mix. Fuck this 20 years of rock and roll is this sound. And they said, nope, and we're going to mix it this way. And we got this acoustic-like instrument, which I think is a mandolin, mixed really high. And then out of nowhere, this distorted electronic bass line is doubling a bass line. And then his vocal is mixed like here. And like, just put it side by side with like Kings of Leon. Kings of Leon, you sound like, oh, it sounds like I'm here and they're here and we're all here. Listen to like Imagine Dragons. There's no space in the world where you would hear those sounds coexisting, because one is far away and acoustic, and one is really close and electronic, and then they've got like this sort of pop idea of vocals really going, which is super popular right now. It was a really shrewd move on their part, and it's a good song. It's just really catchy and singable. That Time to Begin song. It's time to begin. I always say it's time to begin. Is it in? But I don't think, I actually thought those were the lyrics for forever. I was like, damn, this song is kind of sexy for Mormons. Did they get in trouble for that?
Maybe you and Dan can duet.
Yeah.
I think he already has a duet partner, though.
Yeah.
Two
Kendrick
questions
Lamar.
before I let you get out of here, Mikel from the Airborne Toxic event. Would you ever branch out from your current writing and do a TV show, do a film, do a
Maybe.
novel? Do you ever?
I mean, a novel for sure. The other two, like scoring, I'm not sure. Like maybe it's possible. I don't know. It would have to be the right project.
No, I meant writing a film, like physically writing a screenplay.
Oh, you mean like a screenplay, not scoring
like
a
would
film?
would you ever take your creativity outside of the music world?
I've had a bunch of offers on that, which
Have you?
It's really weird. I've had from really powerful people tell me, you're a really good writer, you should write a screenplay. And I'm like, just because you like the band, or because you like, well, how would you possibly know that? I don't know. I'm sure it's hard, and I'm sure like people who do it took a long time to get good at it, and so I can't pretend to know if that's something I'd be interested in or not. I think if you'd asked me 3 years ago, I probably would have said yes, and now I'm sort of, my attitude towards Airborne is that it is a full, like, it requires 100% of my attention. I have to work extremely hard, be extremely focused to do this one thing, which has been this tremendous journey and opportunity in my life where I get to put out music, and there's people who want to hear it, and then we go get to play it, and people fucking buy it, and like, there's shit online, and there's all these different media through which the music gets put out, and then I get to have the experience of going and playing it, something that I wrote with, and then my 4 friends and I go and play this, and it's a tremendous thing, and it's really, really hard. And like, again, anyone who says it's easy is bad at it. It's really hard.
Yeah. Well, but making it look easy is the key.
I suppose, or
Yeah.
I think just connecting. It doesn't.
'Cause you guys-
does Muse look easy? I feel like Muse looks hard. Like if you hear a song like
Yeah, it
Knights
looks
of Sidonia, does that look easy? I think that looks hard to do. Like,
But
it
if
looks
you-
like, how do you do those 10 harmonies?
It's you're making it look like an effortless display of talent is what I think.
I see.
When I see you on stage, when I see Muse on stage,
The live
I see
thing is more
all
that.
of this music come together.
The live thing is definitely more of that.
Yeah.
There's something to playing live music and interacting with the crowd that's has always felt just. I don't get nervous.
Well,
Most people get nervous. I just don't. I don't know why. I don't know if it's some weird kind of narcissism, but I feel more. I can see even my peers or my bandmates in front of people get a little nervous. I just don't. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I should. I suppose. I don't like the anonymity of crowds. It freaks me out. Like if I'm at a football game, which I went to like a couple football games in college before. I was like, oh, that's what that is. Okay, fuck that. And like, I'm really uncomfortable. I don't like being in crowds. I would actually be more comfortable standing at the 50-yard line in front of 100,000 people and speaking for
Really?
something. Oh, for sure. Or singing or something. Than sitting in the crowd. Being a part of an anonymous crowd freaks me the fuck out.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why that is. It's a strange
it could be
tick.
more of
and
a
it's always
social-
been true. It's been true since I was a little
Social
kid.
anxiety, right? I mean,
I
is
don't
it-
have it. I don't know.
I mean,
I
it's,
don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like, relax. Who cares?
The last thing I want to ask you goes back to you were just talking about your live performance, and again, it's tough to find if there are any bad reviews of the Airborne Toxic event out there.
You're saying that now people are going to like email you some.
Yeah.
Or they'll write some just to be like, oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I could write one.
I'm baiting you.
That dude sucked. How about that?
The performance
Huh?
you did at the Disney
Let's walk out.
Walt Disney Hall.
Yeah.
That was pretty fucking cool, man. That was, and I think in terms of just quality of recording and programming a concert like a show, in terms of having the marching band there, the dancers there, it kind of brought it all out. And you did a song that night that's on that live album, Duets.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably my favorite song from you guys. That I had
That's a great example. That song's never been a single or anything.
yeah, and it's one of, and I'll tell you why. And this is where I come in wearing my Airborne T-shirt, sounding like a fanboy. Is that it happened to come around to I was introduced to that song at a time when I needed to hear something like that.
Yeah.
And it's the same with like, people might have been attracted to music or to your band for different reasons because of different times in their life. But what I wanted to ask was about that song. It's never really been. It's kind of in the same vein a little bit as Midnight,
No.
but it's from a little bit of a different place.
Mm-hmm.
What's the story behind that song?
Oh, man. That takes me back. I wrote that song during a period where I was really obsessed with Leonard Cohen. And I remember I was in my little apartment in Los Feliz. I had this tiny apartment, like the size of this deck. This deck's probably bigger than in fact, it's definitely bigger than my apartment. I used to have this tiny little apartment that I slept in and read in, and there was just books everywhere. And I didn't even own a television. Like, it didn't even occur to me to watch TV, except for I'd go to my neighbors and watch The Simpsons or something. But I used to smoke, and I would chain smoke and read and write and drink and have people over, and we'd play, and I'd have other writers come through. And it was just this time in my life where that whole I just been pursuing this to the nth degree because I don't give a flying fuck part of my life, which is thankfully over. I heard a song on the radio actually, and it reminded me of this time when I lived on this horse ranch and out near Palmdale, kind of in Acton, high desert. I lived in a trailer for a year as a ranch hand, and they gave me room and board in exchange so I could write my first novel because I needed somewhere to just sit and write. And there was all these tract homes everywhere, and we used to me and this girl used to go out to these tract homes and look at them, and just because there was nowhere to fucking go, I lived in a trailer, so we'd go and sit
This
in
is
the
your
car.
girlfriend at the time?
At the time.
Did she live? Was she from that area?
No. She's
lived-
from Kansas, and we just go sit and we do that, and then, she was in love with Modest Mouse, and I was a writer at the time, and she used to tell me, but I'd write songs on the side here and there. I wasn't serious about it. I was much more serious about writing, physical prose writing, and she used to tell me you could do this. She'd be like, if you wanted to be a musician, you could be. These songs are really good. And I would be like, shut up, I'm a writer. I'm just not this dude. What am I, Kurt Cobain? This is stupid.
Yeah.
What the fuck? and she would just kind of dance around, and she used to have this fantasy that I would go on tour, and she could sit in the audience and sing. And it was always like the Troubadour or something. She'd imagine like these little venues and stuff, and just being able to be one of this like nameless endless indie rock bands that I listened to at the time, from like Creeper Lagoon to Matt Pompier to fucking, I don't even know, Eels to, I just like all I listened to were bands that played the Troubadour.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Modest Mouse was my favorite band.
I
and
love
hers
one,
too.
yeah.
And we used to just, think about what would it be
and
like.
you adore Promised Ring.
Actually, she adored Promised Ring. I was never
We're
terribly
quoting the
crazy
song,
about,
by the
I
way.
I never actually was that into Promised Ring. Interesting enough, that's a good,
Can't
like,
stand
it fit into the rhyme scheme.
Yeah, exactly.
I tried like 20 different
bands.
You just couldn't fit Death Cab for Cutie.
Yeah, right.
It just didn't, and that was back when they
Dashboard
were
Confessional.
Like, yeah, it was back when they were like a touring band that played the Troubadour. Like,
Yeah.
For years before Death Cab had the whole OC thing, they had like 5 records before they actually broke.
Oh, that late '90s, early aughts.
Yeah, like
that
indie rock
emo
thing.
world. Yeah.
So that was, and so she used to tell me, you could do this. And then so it's a song about like longing for that moment, set to this sort of. I was just trying to kind of get inside what was happening in my head.
Do you remember that song that you reference?
Which one?
The song on the radio.
The
sounds all
Radiohead
look
song?
the same.
That sounds
Yeah.
like, I think it was Mixomatosis.
Okay.
Because she used to listen to Radiohead in her car.
Yeah.
And so we would drive around, and like, she would always be like, everyone plays the same chords except, Radiohead. And then it would just be like, because that was like Kid A, I think. Right?
Yeah.
And like they'd sort of gone in this whole other direction. But so, I don't know, I was trying to capture something about longing or whatever, but
Did she break your heart?
no, I think I broke hers, actually. I think in retrospect, it's easy to look back and say, oh, I chose to write a song about longing that referenced history in the sense that people are like, but I just wrote about how I felt at the time.
Yeah.
And the ideas that were in my head at the time, which was I missed her, it reminded me of these images, and I tried to just describe what I was going through. I mean, there's also, I think, a whole verse of that song that takes place in the apartment.
Yeah.
Where you're just sitting there on your bed alone again, writing again. I had like shit on my walls. I had like books, and I had stuff I had notes that I would just write on my walls in pen, just like written,
Right.
like, and not like in a frame or on a piece of paper, just like on the wall. Like it was fun. Everything was just like this crazy place where all I did was read and write and play music and stuff.
You write a lot of songs there
Oh yeah, I wrote the whole first record there. And
at that ranch at the.
at the ranch.
Where-
I wrote Wishing Well at the ranch actually.
Okay.
But no, the little apartments where I wrote.
Oh, in Most Feliz.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was just trying to get at where I was at and
Mm-hmm.
try to bring to life what I was feeling and going through. And you also, it's not like it's all true. It's there's this idea that your biography.
Artistic license, of course.
Well, it's just your biography doesn't matter. Your autobiography. It's there to be exaggerated and pinched and kind of tortured and sort of brought to life, and in some ways completely neglect massive swaths of your life. I've
Yeah.
never written about like a good day I had with my aunt.
Right. Right.
I've had lots of good days with my aunt. I love
Yeah.
my aunt. She's a lovely woman, and like I have a few aunts. And we hang out, and she's great, and I get like nice text messages from her on Thanksgiving. And my family loves to like hang out and do all kinds. My family's really gregarious people, really fun loving. I've never written songs about that. So it's like there's whole parts of your autobiography that you completely ignore, and that's your right as a writer. And if it's like you're allowed to. It doesn't matter if it's true, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's not as if that song is 100% true. Some of that's exaggerated and made up, and some of it feels like that. It kind of confuses a couple different people in my memory, to be perfectly honest. Like there's one person, then kind of another, and like all that's fair game. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you heard. What matters is someone listening, and to them, there's like a moment of like,
Yeah.
because those songs always hit me.
Yeah.
Where I just like Pictures of You by The Cure.
Oh God, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Or,
absolutely.
like every Smith song, like
Right.
where I feel like the song was written for me,
Yeah.
and like that, that's always what I set out to do, even if it's completely made up and false.
Yeah. More artists need to set out to do that. This has been like an awesome writing clinic. Like I part of my whole thing with doing this, Darren Rose Radio, is just a chance to kind of like let us go and not really know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
But I'm glad this turned into what it did. Because,
Yeah, that was fun. That was a lot better than, so like, what are your influences, man?
Yeah, well,
I'm
I
on
mean-
Deadline, man. Okay. So like on your first record, you did
Yeah.
this, and on your second record, you did this. What are you going to do now?
What's
Huh?
it gonna? What was it like in the studio for
What
the
can
last
we-
album?
Yeah, so you worked with Shakira King? How was that?
So a tour's coming up, huh?
Good. Fuck off. Can you tell me some stories of touring?
Yeah.
No, do your fucking homework.
Yeah.
So why'd you name the band? I don't know. Read the fucking Wikipedia page.
Yeah,
dumbass.
exactly.
Stop asking me the same fucking questions. I'm
Stupid
sick of it.
Yeah. Stupid Don DeLeo. Mikel, always a pleasure. Next time we're going swimming.
Yeah,
all right?
okay.
Next
What
time,
you
brother.
can't see is there's this pool back over here. And it's like,
Pool, bocce ball.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll invite you to the party next time. Thanks again.
yeah, thanks for having me.